OFL operating as ONET as the Municipal Controlled Corporation meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. I've just got a few comments to make before we'll commence and get into the agenda. Firstly, I'd certainly like to welcome all the attendees, both in the gallery here, as well as online and participating virtually. And I will inform those joining us. The agenda outlines the purpose of the annual general meeting, and this will not be an open forum for questions or debate. Indicated on the agenda at the bottom of the page, I believe, is my email, and certainly individuals, citizens, residents are welcome and encouraged to send any questions, comments to my email. And then subsequently, the board will meet and decide on the process for and the format for responding to any questions that come in. And again, just to confirm, all inquiries should be sent to darren.wilson@onet.ca. And as I said, the board will address and respond in the manner to be determined. Just some housekeeping items. In-person attendees are encouraged to use the hand sanitizer, which is at the entranceway. Washroom, bathroom facilities are in the rear of the room. Please ensure your cell phones are silenced, and please remain seated unless you have to exit the room or use the facilities. At this time, I'd like to introduce the board and our special individuals around the table. As far as board of directors go, we have to my immediate left, Wanda Blatz, James Cummings, Dan Daly is participating virtually. Over to my right, we have Harvey Walsh, Heather Ryan, and myself, Darren Wilson. Absent is Director Judy Dahl. I would also like to introduce Chris Thompson, seated as our primary officer of Olds Fibre Limited. And seated next to him on my far left is Liz Brody. Liz will be assuming the role of secretary for the meeting today. To my very immediate left, I'll introduce, and some of you, most of you I think have met already, CAO, our Chief Administrative Officer, Brent Williams, as the shareholder representative for the town operating the Municipal Controlled Corporation. And seated at the back of the room, at the back of our U-shaped facility here, is the auditor for Olds Fibre Limited, Crystal Stoutenberg. And to her right is Sean Fox, and Sean is assisting us with the virtual and telecommunications capacity. Before we proceed, and on behalf of the board and the shareholder, I would like to acknowledge the efforts and contribution of the ONET staff, not only for 2021, but also the past couple of years, working through some very challenging and stressful times, as well as through the pandemic. And I would also like to acknowledge and thank the loyal customers of ONET. At this time, I would ask CAO Williams, as shareholder representative, to confirm waiving of the 21-day notice period for the 2021 OFL financial statements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representing the town of Olds shareholder, I can confirm that the waiting period or the notice period for the financial statements has been waived. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO Williams, shareholder. At this time, I would ask the board, the shareholder, the primary officer, if there are any added items to the agenda.
No, not this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Seeing and hearing none, I would ask for a motion for the shareholder representative to accept the agenda as presented. Director Blatz.
Thank you, Director Wilson. I move that the agenda for the AGM for Olds Fibre Limited Annual General Meeting be accepted as presented.
Thank you, Director Blatz. Shareholder support.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Director Blatz and shareholder Williams on behalf of the town. As I stated, and as the CAO is the representative of the town as shareholder, we do have quorum. I would now ask for a motion for the shareholder representative to accept the minutes as presented of the April 8th, 2021 Olds Fibre Limited Annual General Meeting. Director Walsh,
Yeah, I move that the annual general meeting minutes from April 8th, 2021 be accepted by the shareholder as presented.
thank you, Director Walsh. Does the shareholder approve? Accept.
Yes, I approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Motion accepted. I would now ask Crystal Stoutenberg to present the 2021 year-end December 31 financial statements and engagement report.
All right, good evening, everyone. As Darren said, my name is Crystal Stoutenberg, and I am the owner of Stoutenberg and Company here in town, and we have completed the review engagement for Olds Fibre Limited for the December 31st, 2021 year end. So I will go through the financial statements line by line. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to interrupt me as we go, or reach out to us throughout for any questions after the fact. So we'll kind of quickly skip over the first few pages. There is the index outlining what's all included in the financial statements. And then there is our review engagement report, which outlines our conclusion on the financial statements. And it is our conclusion that the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with accounting standards for private enterprises, which I will again conclude on in the end. So we'll start off with the balance sheet. So the first page here outlines the assets of the corporation at the end of December. So cash at the end of the year was 680,000, accounts receivable 533,000. Inventory, so this is assets that are installed on client locations. So the value of those at the end of the year was 148,000. Extended warranties, so this represents warranties that were previously purchased and amortized over their life. So the remaining balance there is just under 7,300. Prepaid expenses, so this is a combination of some membership subscriptions and insurance. The balance of that is 49,000. Those will be realized during the next fiscal year. Deferred consulting costs, just under 27,000. So what this is this refers to consulting costs that were from years ago, kind of in the origin of Olds Fibre, and they're realized over their useful period. And when we thought that those would be useful to the organization, those will be gone next year. Regulatory deposits, 279,000. So the big increase here has to do with the transaction with the town. So 227,000 of this represents prudential deposits that were transferred from the Olds Institute. So that really accounts for the bulk of that increase this year. Property, plants, and equipment. So again, we're seeing a large increase in this, 8.9 million. Now this has to do with the underground assets that were transferred from Olds Institute. So 8.3 million of that 8.9 were related to the transaction that happened with the town this year. Credit union equity, $6, so no major changes there. Okay, total assets in the corporation, 10,677,000. Moving on to the next page, we get our liabilities and shareholders' equity. Bank indebtedness was just under 3.4 million. So this is with respect to a line of credit that was previously Olds Institute. And just part of the restructuring agreement, this was transferred to Olds Fibre, and we have confirmation that this was done just last week. Accounts payable and accrued liabilities, 93,000. GST payable 40,000, so no big changes there. Interest payable 127,000. So this is a new line, and this is with respect to the loan outstanding to the town. This represents the interest that was accrued at the end of the year. Current portion of long-term debt, 450,000. This is the amount of the financing that will be repaid before December 31st, 2022. We have the SEBA loan, 30,000. So this represents the amount that needs to be repaid. The other 10,000 was included in income when it was received. Remainder of the long-term financing, 14,600,000. So the large increase here has to do with the loan to the town. We'll see that in detail in the financial statements. Moving down, you'll see the Class K and Class L shares have been redeemed. Again, part of the restructuring agreement. Next year, those will be totally gone from the financial statements. As well as the share capital line, you'll see a big decrease there, and that just had to do with some of the common shares that were redeemed with the transactions with the town. Contributed surplus, 172,000, and the deficit at the end of the year was 9.9. Total liabilities and shareholders' equity, 10,677,000. Statement of deficit. So we had the opening deficit of 10,189,000. Net income for the year was 226,000, giving us the closing deficit of 9.9 million. Income statement for the year. So we had a variety of sales this year. Residential sales, 2.5 million. Business, 743,000. Wholesale, just under 256,000. Transit, 204,000. Enterprise, 190. College, 120. Co-location, 14,000. Off-net, 5,100. Total income for the year was just over 4 million. Cost of sales. So we're adjusting for our opening inventory, 178,000. Network external services and maintenance 1.1. Amortization, so this relates to the assets that are installed on customer locations, 85,000. Discounts, 27,000. Other costs, 420. And we take out that closing inventory that is still available at year end. Total cost then just under 1.3. Gross profit, 2.75 million. Expenses, 2.8. We'll go through those in detail in a few on the next page here. Overall loss from operations, 92,000 plus other income of 318,000 gives us the net income for the year of 226,000. Expenses for the year. So we had advertising and promotion, just under 20,000. Amortization of those consulting costs that we've seen on the balance sheet, just under 27,000. Amortization of property, plants, and equipment, 470,000. Now this went up largely because of the assets acquired from Olds Institute. Bad debts, just under 8,500. Consulting fees, 2,300. The warranty costs, we're expensing 7,300. Insurance, 19,000. Interest and bank charges, just under 45,000. Interest on long-term debt, 226,000. Now this big increase again comes from the accrual on the interest payable to the town at the end of the year. Meetings, 435. Meetings and conventions, 1,000. Memberships, 5,300. Office expenses, just under 6,000. Professional fees, 22,000. Rental on buildings, 61,000. Rental on fiber access, 629,000. Repairs and maintenance, 27,000. Salary and wages, just under 1.2. Telephone, just under 7,000. Travel, 14,000. And utilities, just under 65,000, giving us the total expense for the year of 2.8. Statement of cash flows. So this represents how the organization is using the cash available to them. This does not account for the transactions with the town because that was a non-cash transaction. So we're taking that net income for the year of 226,000. We're adding back items that don't represent cash. So we're adding back all the amortization to come up with 805,000. Changes in non-cash working capital. So we're adjusting for changes in the balance sheet that the organization is not either receiving cash for or paying cash for. So overall, we're adjusting there $9,300. Cash flow from operations is a positive 796,000. Some of that money was used to purchase new equipment to be installed on customer locations. That was a use of cash of 53,000. An additional use of cash for other assets, property, plant, and equipment, 187,000, and regulatory deposits. So this is the prudential deposits, 45,000. Cash was used for investing this year of 285,000. Financing, so we had the settlement of shareholder loan debts largely related to Olds Institute, just under 3,500, and the repayment of long-term debt, 77,000. Increase in cash flow for the year, 429,000. Add that to our opening cash balance, we get the closing of 680,000 for the year. Then we get into our financial statement notes, and lots of these are very standard, talking about accounting policies and how items are recorded. So I won't go through these in significant detail unless somebody asks me to. We have a description of the business, that we are following accounting standards for private enterprises, that cash represents liquid assets and how we recognize inventory. And again, those deferred consulting costs that I already mentioned. Our significant accounting policies. So these are the rates here that we amortize property, plant, and equipment at. These are over their useful life. Future taxes, we recognize future tax liability and assets when it is foreseeable that we will realize them. Revenue recognition, we recognize when services are either provided or complete and when it is reasonable that we will collect on them. Note 4, so again, as I mentioned in the cash flow statement and again on the balance sheet, the regulatory deposits, there was a large increase in them, and that was largely due to the transaction with the town when those were transferred from Olds Institute to Olds Fibre. Bank indebtedness, so we are required to disclose the maximum amount that Olds Fibre can access and any letters of credit that are available. Note 6, so here is the inventory. So we have the total customer inventory that's installed on the premises, 2.4 less what we've amortized to date, gives us the closing amount of inventory. 7, the deferred consulting costs. So again, we already went through this, but those were consulting costs related to when Olds Fibre was kind of in its initial phases, and those were amortized over their useful life. Note 8, so here is the split on the assets that Olds Fibre has. So the first column is cost, so what Olds Fibre has paid for those assets. Second column is what has been amortized or expensed for accounting purposes to date. And then that third bolded column there, totaling the 8.9 million, that's what you see as an asset on the balance sheet. Note 9, just some disclosure on the CEBA loan. So that is required to be repaid. The government has extended that to December 31st, 2023. The other 10,000 was included in income when the organization received it. Note 10, long-term debt. So we have some private loans that will be satisfied this year. So by the time we're looking at this next year, all that we're really going to be seeing is the town loan unless the organization seeks other financing. So we have 5 private loans with the last one to be repaid in October 15th, 2022. And then we will just have the loan to the town for 15 million. Total financing at the end of the year was 15,060,017, with 450,000 of that to be repaid before the next fiscal year end. Long-term portion of that then is 14,609,000. Approximate principal repayment is shown below. That is with standard interest rates and in the agreements to date. That will change if anything is renegotiated. Just a note on the share capital and kind of a disclosure on what was redeemed with part of the transactions that occurred during the year. Note 12, just a split on that other income that we've seen on the income statement totaling 318,000. Note 13, so this just discloses some future income tax assets that we have. So basically this is accounting for some loss carry forwards that the corporation has for use in the future. So when the organization realizes some income tax in the future, this is available to use against that. Note 14, so just part of our requirement is to disclose any related party transactions. So this note is longer than typical because we had the change in ownership during the year. So the first part is any related party transactions that occurred with the Olds Institute. And then at the bottom there is related party transactions with the town after October 1st. It gets a little bit wordy in here, but again, we're required to kind of explain everything related party that happened during the year. So we're describing the change in ownership and really laid out where that $15 million loan came from in exchange for assets and assumption of debt and the redemption of shares during the year. Note 15, lease commitments. So we're just disclosing here what the organization isn't required or committed to pay for the upcoming years. So we have the lease agreement for the retail and office premises, and then also the lease agreement for the central office building. And finally, note 16 just describes some of the risks that the organization is exposed to, credit risk, if customers aren't paying their bills, those kind of things, liquidity risk, like how quickly could we just get rid of assets if we had to cover bills, and interest rate risk, if interest rates went up, could the organization cover their liabilities? And that's that covers our financial statements for the year. Does anybody have any questions on them?
Seeing none, I will firstly say thanks very much, Crystal, to you, and I believe Alyssa has been involved in this, and I'm sure some of your other staff. So thanks very much. I know it was a bit of a process to pull everything together over the last little while. So thanks again for the efforts of you and your firm and your staff. At this time, I would ask for a motion that the shareholder approve and accept the 2021 Olds Fibre Limited financial statements. Director Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the shareholder approve or accept the 2021 Olds Fibre Limited financial statements.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the shareholder approves.
Thank you. I will ask for a second motion relative to shareholder approval accepting the 2021 Stutenberg and Company engagement review report. Director Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the shareholder approve the 2021 Stoutenberg and Company engagement report.
Yes, approve that, and once again echo your comments and thank Ms. Stutenberg and her team for the hard work and the specialized circumstance they worked under. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Moving along, item 6C on the agenda, I would look for a motion that the shareholder approve and appoint Stoutenberg and Company as accountant for Olds Fibre Limited for the 2022 fiscal year. Director Ryan.
Thank you very much, Chairman Wilson. I move that we appoint Suttonburg as the accounting firm for 2022.
And the shareholder as well.
Thank you. And 7A, I believe our last motion, requesting that the OFL Board of Directors appointments as per October 29, 2021 Town of Olds Council meeting be confirmed by the shareholder. Director Blatz.
Thank you, Chairman Wilson. I move that the OFL Board of Directors appointments as per October 29th, 2021 Town of Olds Council be confirmed as by the shareholder.
Thank you. And yes, I confirm that those appointments as well.
Thank you. Item 8, as we near the end of the agenda, the next annual general meeting for Olds Fibre Limited operating as ONET as the municipal controlled corporation will be at a date yet to be determined in 2023. And with that, I will adjourn this annual general meeting at 7:28. Oh, sorry, geez. I was informed that I was informed that it was maybe not all that clear when I was talking at the start. I will reaffirm that my email address for any questions, comments is darren.wilson@o-net.ca. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting at 7:28. Thank you.